Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. My name is Starrapter. Welcome back to the channel. This is where I talk about the Star Wars comics that released the week of. So we have three big ones to talk about this week. The first one is something that's been teased, something that's been promoted for a long time, and that is the latest Star Wars event in the comics, and that is the Dark Droids event. It's going to collect or intertwine between Bounty Hunters, Dr. Aphra, Darth Vader, Star Wars, D-Squad miniseries, and this 5-issue miniseries, Dark Droids. This one is written by Charles Soule with artwork by Luke Ross, one of my favorite artists. Started out on the Mall stories and has done many more in Star Wars. This specific issue is called Scourge of the Droids. So this is where we find out the entire premise for what's going to happen in Star Wars comics for the next 5 months up into December. So basically what we have going on is Star Wars' version of The Walking Dead with droids. So let me break that down because that's basically what it is. So you have a droid entity that has been sort of released. So basically it takes back into the Hidden Empire. We had the Fermata cage. Kira was trying to basically trap Palpatine and Darth Vader in the Fermata cage. And she said she was bluffing to them, saying she had a Sith Lord that was trapped in there. So they went to go see Vader and Palpatine, the Sith Lord that was trapped in there. Turns out there was no Sith Lord trapped in there, but what there was a disc. Now this disc is very integral to this story of Dark Droids, because this disc was lying there at the Maxine station. Then at the same point we had Dr. Aphra, who was possessed by the Spark Eternal, this ascendant piece of technology made hundreds of years ago that mimics the Force and all that. So this entity was force pushed out of Dr. Aphra, the Spark Eternal, finds a new home in this disc that was rejected from the Fermata cage. Fast forward a couple weeks later, there's a salvage crew that's going through Maxine Station from the Empire, gathering any evidence and whatnot, and a KX security droid picks up this disc that is now two powerful beings. This is powerful droid presence called the Scourge mixed with the Spark Eternal, very powerful being. So you got this super being here, and this disc actually is a droid. So the disc has legs, goes onto the KX droid, implants its intelligence into that droid, and now there are two of the droids. So basically this droid then infects all the other droids on the Star Destroyer, killing all these Imperials, 47,000 of them, and then actually goes to the Rebellion and infects C-3PO as well, and a whole bunch of havoc is about to happen here. Empire, Rebellion, everything's gonna get screwed up because this entity called the Scourge is out for hunger. It will basically spread its omnipotence to other droids, causing violence. At the same time, there's an interlude halfway through or whatever about this droid called Ajax Sigma. Ajax Sigma is a droid that dates all the way back to the High Republic. If you read the Han Solo and Chewbacca miniseries or maxi-series, you know that that was something that they were after. That was the MacGuffin of that story. They bury this droid processor in the ground. So we're going to find that story out in the D-Squad miniseries of how this droid was uncovered. So anyway, this droid is a droid that persists on this place called the Second Revelation. And it basically has all these free droids, like L337 is an example of a droid that has a free consciousness. So they have all these different people spread throughout the galaxy to kind of find these new people for recruits. So apparently one of those droids was actually on the Star Destroyer and sent out a signal to Ajax Sigma, basically warning the droid about, oh my gosh, there's this Scourge that is happening, and then that droid was possessed, of course. So we have Ajax Sigma, who is the antagonist to the Scourge. He is now preparing himself for battle, getting his followers, and they're now going to go out and try to contain the Scourge that is unbeknownst to the rest of the galaxy at this point. So that is where we currently stand for Dark Droids. I hope you stuck with me through that explanation. Some things I want to shout is I'm very curious, I'm very surprised that they had tied this so closely into the Hidden Empire series, the Crimson Dawn series, the War of the Bounty Hunter series, everything involved with Kira, with the Maxine Station, with all that. So it might be a little bit hard for people to jump into this one specifically because there's so much baggage by all the other comics. So I thought they would start off a little fresh. I thought that was interesting. I do like how this story picks up with just the narration of the Spark Eternal / the Scourge talking about the importance of droids. Some droids are friends, like the Luke Skywalker. Some droids are just disposable, like Darth Vader dueling one of those droids from the Star Wars Vader Immortal VR experience on the Oculus, which I actually have and played, and that's a lot of fun. Some droids are made to build houses. Some droids are lovers, and it shows Lando Calrissian in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon simulating that Alpha 3 is his lover, which is kind of funny. So I like how it shows the importance of the droids. I love the feeling of this story already with the fact that it's a horror-centric Star Wars story, and we're getting droids that are venting humans into space. We're getting droids that are turning on the toxic gas fumes and ventilating the people and getting them killed. We're seeing droids, like medical droids, using their life-saving techniques to use saws to kill people. So it's very much like, oh my gosh, this is really starting off pretty strong. And this is going to have huge ramifications for Star Wars. As I said, all the other Star Wars ongoings in between Empire and Return of the Jedi are going to be heavily tied in. We got that nice little checklist at the back of this issue here, which shows us, okay, that is what we can expect up into December. If you want to get the full experience, you're going to be going and getting a lot of comics. So we'll see. I'm always apprehensive about how many storylines we can have in between that 1 year period of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. But at least this one, of course, written by Charles Soule. We know he writes solid Star Wars stories. Most of the time, great Star Wars stories. So I have no doubt that he'll be able to tie this in and make it a very worthwhile stay for everybody that's reading that. Next up, we have the ending of a series. We have the ending of the Yoda maxi series. This one has had a lot of different artists, a lot of different writers on board. This one specifically is called The Cave. It's written by Cavan Scott and Ibram Robertson. So this one is kind of like coming full circle because Cavan Scott did the first 3 issues of that High Republic or whatever was set in the old-timey Star Wars timeline. Now he's bringing it back. He's finishing up this maxi series. Basically, as the title suggests, Yoda's on Dagobah, he's talking with Ben, and he stumbles upon the evil dark side cave that Luke goes into in Empire Strikes Back. So he goes in there, and he has to survive against his own sorrow, against his visions of people failing, of him failing people like his Padawan Dooku, right, of him. He's falling to the dark side. He failed Keeve Trennis from the High Republic, a Jedi Master that became one of the Lost 20. He failed Anakin Skywalker. He finds the fate of Yaddle. He finds out that Dooku killed Yaddle. So that ties in recently with the Tales of the Jedi shorts. Tales of the Jedi shorts. So I love the connective tissue this is having, but it has a very prominent message. And you have him talking to Bree, who is a character from the first 3 issues that Kevin Scott wrote. And after all this trauma that he has gone through, failure has been common for Yoda. And this is when he gets that famous line from Last Jedi, failure is the greatest teacher, right? Or something along those lines. So I love the fact that they're calling back. They're giving Yoda that kind of realization that through all these 10 issues, there's stories that built up to this moment where Yoda realizes he can't be wallowing around in his fear forever and his sorrow and his failure. Use that failure as a tool to better yourself, to make sure that Luke Skywalker is going to come to your doorstep in a few short weeks or days, needs somebody to lift him up to become the best of the Last Jedi to confront evil. And Luke needs that strong teacher, and that's what Yoda will become. And we even have that conversation with Ben at the end saying, hey, look, I got to go back to Hoth and let Luke know to come to Dagobah. So, right where this runs into, right in that Empire Strikes Back timeline. So I thought this was pulled together terrific. I liked this maxi series a lot. This really shows a lot of the character of Yoda. You learn so much. I like how there's different timelines. Pre-High Republic, wherever it was, going into the pre-Phantom Menace with Dooku, going into the Clone Wars with Grievous, and learning all valuable lessons along the way. I think this is a great example of how you do a maxi series done right for a long time of events, right? Because Yoda's 900 years old, so it's cool. There's not many characters you can jump around this much in the different timelines, and it just shows you how resilient Yoda was throughout his entire life. And last but not least, we're switching gears over to Dark Horse, we have Hyperspace Stories for a second week in a row. Hyperspace Stories number 7. I think they're coming to realize that, hey, now the High Republic's over, we got to start cranking out these Hyperspace Stories. So this one is called The Hunt. This is written by Michael Moresi with Andreas Mucci on the artwork. And this is a Boba Fett story, and he is trying to work with this Wookiee to find his doll, and that's the doll that persists through all the connective tissue of these stories, and that leads to a big knockdown fight between Boba Fett and a bunch of Trandoshans, which is interesting because obviously Trandoshans are always going after Wookiees, so we see a lot of that happening here. We see Boba Fett using a lot of awesome gadgetry. We see him using his jetpack. We see him using his flamethrower. At one point, the Wookiee gets captured, and that's when Fett is able to track him down, track the Houndstooth down, which is the ship of Boss, to be able to get him aboard there and get away. But that's not before Boss tracks him down, and he is saved by the Wookiee, who is able to use Slave 1 to get him out of there. Unfortunately, I do not find the doll, but Boba Fett, in a touching way, inspires some wisdom in this Wookiee and tells him, hey, you just got to keep looking. Don't give up, right? I was like, oh my gosh, like Boba Fett is saying something profound here. So breaking it down, what I really liked about the story is seeing the connection between Boba Fett and the Wookiee. And Boba Fett probably wouldn't give a crap about this job, but it's because this Wookiee's doll was made by his father, and that gets him thinking about his time with Jango Fett, picking up Jango Fett's helmet. You remember, he is wearing the armor of his father, so he knows how important, how sentimental something from your family could be, an heirloom from your family, so that's why he agrees to help. But I love the idea of the gadgetry. I love the artwork in this. This definitely had a nice edginess to the artwork that I'm not expecting from these all-age readers of comics. I like the emphasis on the Slave 1, seeing the Slave 1 being remotely activated from Boba Fett. I remember that was a thing in Shadows of the Empire, fighting Boba Fett, and there's nobody in Slave 1, as Slave 1 is fighting you in his boss battle on his junkyard planet. So I love that Michael Moresi is able to pull that lore out of there and really create something special. And just like that hunter versus the hunted kind of thing, it's just a fantastic storyline. These are why the Hyperspace Stories really thrive, is because they have these nice self-contained adventures that give these great overall storytelling tropes and storytelling messages, great deep thoughts here. So that's going to do it for the comics that came out this week. As you can tell, I liked all 3 of these very, very much. There's something for everybody, whether you're a youngling, whether you are into Star Wars horror, whether you are just a big fan of Yoda. There's some stuff to go to the comic book shop and be excited to buy this week. So for more on Star Wars, I'm always talking over on the channel on Outer Rim Transmission. Every week we're breaking down the latest news, reviews, episodes of anything that's currently coming out. We just have a couple weeks to Ahsoka. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there ever so closer. So for those of you that want to stay up to speed on what I'm doing here, simply subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you'll be notified of future videos. That is going to do it for me, Starrapter. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me, and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Starrapter.